Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rurikhan here, coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be talking about Monster Hunter World. More specifically, we're going to be talking about mounting mechanics. Now, before we continue with this video, it is important for me to mention that these are conclusions that I have reached through experimentation since Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. It does not mean that these are hard facts, but I'm pretty sure this is the way stuff works, okay? So anyway, first things first, you guys might be wondering, how exactly do you mount monsters? Well, the only real requisite to mount a monster is to perform an aerial attack and actually connect that aerial attack with the monster. Now, some of the easiest ways of doing this is just running your character off a ledge. Essentially, your character will do a jump, and in the middle of that jump, usually you will press the triangle button or the Y button if you're an Xbox user, and your character will start an attack animation. If that attack animation connects with the monster, there you go. You've done all of the things that you can possibly do to try and mount the monster. Then it's just about repeating that until you actually get that mounting attack. Now, beyond ledges, there are plenty of other ways to actually mount monsters. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I will give you a couple of examples to set this scenario up. So there are the ledges, like I've already mentioned. There's the mushroom walls. There are sliding attacks, which you probably have noticed through my weapon guides that a lot of these sliding attacks actually combo into aerial attacks. There's even the possibility that you are thrown by a hammer user, because a lot of times hammer users will do the golf swing and they might hit you either by mistake or intentionally, and your character will get thrown in the air, and it actually looks like it's an animation where you're just like, oh my god, oh, I'm gonna fall down. In the middle of that animation, like I said, if you were thrown by a friendly hammer user, you can actually press triangle or Y button, and your character will recover into an attack animation, and there's a chance that you can mount the monster with that. I've seen plenty of people doing that, and it's pretty cool. There's also the insect glaive leap, which I'm sure you guys have seen the insect glaive video, so this should come as a no-brainer. And there are even other more nuanced skills like the sword and shield charge blade, which will also enable you to like jump up, and then as you are coming down, you can actually perform a mounting attack. There are plenty of other ways. It's like if I was to stay here and list all of them, we're going to be here way too long. So yeah, those are the ways in which you can mount a target. Just remember, aerial attack, connect with the target. There you go. You've done anything you could have done. And now you guys wonder, okay, so what is the chance to mount? Is it 10%, 30%, 50%? You shouldn't really consider it as a hard chance to mount. The way that I personally see it, and the way that I'm pretty sure the way it works, is it's a build-up. So the more you do it, the higher the chance will be. And think of it like a poison gauge, for instance, which even though Monster Hunter World doesn't show you like the poison building up like something like Dark Souls, but think of it of the same way, right? You attack the monster a bunch of times with a poison weapon, eventually the monster gets poisoned. Mounting attack is the same thing. You do a bunch of attacks that deal mounting damage, and by that I mean aerial attacks, and eventually you will mount the monster. So it's a build-up, right? The more you do it, the higher the chance gets, and eventually you will mount it. Now, having said that, this is subject to diminishing returns. So what does that mean? After you mount the monster once, it's going to take a lot more attacks to get to mount it again. Again, a lot of attacks that are dealing mounting damage, aerial attacks. It's going to take a lot more of those to mount the monster again. Once you've mounted a second time, it's going to take even more, okay? So that's diminishing returns. So basically, the more you mount a monster, the harder it is going to get. So if you've ever been wondering, dude, why is it so easy to just mount the monster right at the start of a hunt, and then after that it gets increasingly harder? It's because it has diminishing returns. So this is also something that you should consider a tactical option. Maybe when you are doing some tougher fights, you might want to wait until the monster is in a certain scenario. Maybe you're like, okay, so maybe if I mount it while he's enraged, you know, maybe we can get some damage in while he's enraged, you know, that kind of thing. Even though, again, monsters, when they are enraged, they become a little bit hard to mount simply because they move around a lot more. But, you know, you need to think of mounting as a tactical option, okay? That's just something that I wanted to bring up. So there are skills that can help you mount. I will give you two examples. One of those is a food skill called Feline Rider. If you need to, you can go watch my food video where I go over a lot of the food buffs and stuff like that. But there is a food skill which is Feline Rider by eating 4 of the red foods, or foods that provide you with the courage skill. If you get that, you will have an easier time mounting. There's also an armor skill, which is in the Paolumu jacket, at least the high rank one. I didn't check for the low rank one, sorry. But that skill is called the Master Mounter. That will also give you increased chance of actually mounting a monster. So keep these skills in mind if you are trying to mount as often as possible. These are two things that you will want to take into consideration. So, now that I've told you how to actually mount a monster, how do the mechanics work once you actually are on top of the monster, right? Because then it's almost like it is just like a mini game in all essence. So you get to essentially switch between 3 or 2 different positions depending on the monster. And a lot of times these are even similar monsters, like for instance Rathalos only has 2 mounting positions, which is the head and the back, which is weird because I could have sworn that at some point I went to a Rathalos tail, but I guess that was just in my dreams. Either way, Rathalos, for instance, only has 2 mounting positions, head and back, or torso, whatever you want to call it. The Rathian, on the other hand, you can go head, torso, and back, and tail. Head, torso, and tail. And these are 2 monsters that are very, very similar. So as you can see, these mounting positions can vary wildly, but essentially they allow you to focus on specific monster parts. So if you want to deal more damage to the head, you can go to the head and smack him in the head. You want to deal more damage to the torso, you can smack him in the torso, tail, so on and so forth. Basically, you select where you want to be hitting him the hardest. However, while you are mounting, you're not really dealing that much damage. You're basically hitting the monster a couple of times and just dealing 1 damage per hit. Unless you actually succeed in the mount, at which point you will perform your special, and that will actually deal a little bit of damage. So, what you really have to consider is where do you want to finish your mount? Which you don't always go instantly to the spot where you want your mount to finish, because some monsters, they will become super aggressive, and they will try to immediately get you off by smacking their face against something. So you might want to consider, waiting a little bit before you actually go to your desired spot, but this is going to be something you will earn through experience. Now, an interesting detail here is that if you are an insect glaive user, whenever you swap between spots in the monster, your character is actually going to do a cartwheel with the insect glaive that is going to deal considerably more damage than any other weapon in the game in terms of like mounting damage while you are not doing your finisher. So if you're an insect glaive user, play around with that and figure out which way works best for you, but basically you can cycle between all of the different spots in the monster and just deal tons of damage that way. So now you know how to do damage. Now you know how you can swap between the different positions in the monster. So when should you actually swap between those positions? Well, here's the thing. Do you really want to hit one of those positions specifically? Like say you're targeting a head, for instance. If you are, your objective should be to remain on the head for as long as possible. Now, there are 2 main mechanics that the monster is going to try to use to get you off of him. The very first one is he's going to try and shake you off. So the shaking off mechanic is going to vary. The animation varies wildly from monster to monster. The way to understand whether or not that is about to happen is keep an eye on your minimap. Your minimap is usually glowing with a white aura when you are mounting. If your mount is successful, you should start to see this glow diminish, indicating the monster is getting tired and is about to go down. Now, when the monster is about to try and shake you off, that will start to glow red. Not only the minimap itself, but usually the screen itself also gets this subtle red effect, almost flashing. So this is like your telltale sign that the monster is about to try and do something to get you off of him. So if there's no shift in camera focus and all that is happening is the map is glowing red, you want to hold R2 to grab onto the monster. If you fail to do this, the monster is going to consume a huge amount of your stamina gauge. And if you run out of stamina, you're going to get thrown off the monster. If you are able to successfully counter this by holding on while he's doing it, you're going to lose very small bits of stamina, like it's barely even noticeable. So you'll be fine and you can continue damaging the monster once the animation ends. You can immediately, as soon as the animation ends for whatever the monster is doing, you can immediately resume stabbing him in the face, stabbing him in the tail, whatever you happen to be doing. The other thing the monster will try to do to get you off of him is he will throw itself against things. Now, usually this only affects the part that you are mounting. Now, the telltale sign of this is that the camera focus will actually change to a wall, for instance. Usually you will be mounting the monster is about to smack himself onto a wall to try and get you off. The camera focus will change, and you will notice that there is a big visual change in your camera focus, focusing the wall or a tree or whatever the monster is trying to hit because you are mounting it. When that happens, what you need to do is swap locations. So say, for instance, you're mounting the monster in the head. The monster is about to smack into a wall because the camera shifts focus and shows you the wall. What you want to do in that situation is swap to the torso or tail if that option is available to you. So you swap to the torso, monster will smack its head on the wall, it will actually hurt itself. After that animation plays out, you can jump back on the head and continue dealing damage. So these are the two things you got to keep in mind. Is the minimap glowing red? Is the camera visually glowing red a little bit? I better hang on. Did the camera shift focus to a wall, a tree, or something else? Probably means the monster's about to ram into it and I have to swap locations, okay? So either swap locations or grab on. There's also the option of swapping locations when he's about to shake you off, but personally I'd rather grab on because I tend to want to hit specific parts. Like when I'm on there, I tend to try and do my finishes on the head or on the tail or on the back and damage that specific part of the monster. And staying in that part increases your chances of actually damaging that specific part. So keep that in mind. Now, having said that, sometimes during the camera focus, things are like so hectic that you might fail and monster throws you off, right? If the monster throws you off during one of those things where he rams himself into a wall, you can actually press R2 or the right trigger to go ahead and recover by using your grappling hook. So keep this in mind in case you get thrown off. You can still recover the mount and continue performing the mount. And basically, if you succeed in doing all of this and stay in the monster long enough, you will eventually perform what I will call a mounting finisher, which is a special attack that changes depending on the weapon that you have. Usually, when you perform the mounting finisher, the monster will go down. Sometimes, however, the monster doesn't go down. I'm not sure if this is intended or if it is a bug. I'm not 100% sure. But if the monster doesn't go down, it is actually better for you because you get a chance to perform your mounting finisher a second time, and that is additional damage on the part that you are trying to damage. So personally, whenever he doesn't go down, I'm like, I'm happy, okay? Because, okay, you didn't go down. Well, here we go again. And now keep something in mind, which is when you are performing the mounting finisher, there are two weapons that you have to pay special attention. Those weapons are the greatsword and the hammer. Why do you have to pay special attention to these weapons? Well, most of the other weapons, you just spam triangle while you are mounted, right? And when it comes time to do your special finisher, you just keep spamming triangle and everything just keeps happening. You don't have to worry too much. With the greatsword and the hammer, though, these will perform charged finishers. So whenever the prompt comes up, and you can see this on the top right-hand side, indicating that you're about to perform the mounting finisher, for the greatsword and the hammer, you need to hold down triangle to actually go all the way with the finisher so that you actually get a tier 3 charged attack. If you don't do this, you're going to just perform a weak sauce mounting finisher, so keep that in mind if you are a greatsword or hammer user. Once the monster goes down, it is always advantageous when the monster goes down because you have a lot of time to actually punish it by dealing damage on the specific parts that you are trying to damage, and it's always good. Like, I've seen some people wonder, is it even worth it to mount the monster because you're not dealing that much damage? In my opinion, it is, because you then get a huge opening to just let loose with all your combos, or maybe even bomb the monster if that is something that you want it to do. There's basically a huge time of opening that really makes up for the fact that you lose a little bit of DPS while you are mounting the monster. Another interesting thing that you can do while you are mounting the monster is you can actually fire your slinger at the monster. And you guys are like, oh wow, interesting. So why would that be useful? Well, say for instance, you have a thorn pod. You can actually shoot the thorn pod, and then while you are dealing carving damage, the thorn pod is going to deal additional damage to the monster. You can shoot a piercing pod. You know, there are a lot of things that you can do to the monster with your slinger. Now, there is something that I've seen some concern, at least from some of my friends who have been telling me, oh dude, but I use the arc shot, and sometimes the mount finishes a little bit prematurely and the person doesn't get to do their finisher. This is my opinion, but this is something that you should debate with your hunting party. What kind of etiquettes you want to do with the jumping mechanics. Like, do you always want to let the people who mount the monster actually finish the mount? At which point, well, maybe you don't want to hit the monster that much while it's being mounted. But in my opinion, you should just like hit the monster. Everybody should always be hitting the monster as hard as you possibly can. If the monster goes down before the person mounting it can finish, that is fine. Because the amount of time that you are mounting the monster is time that not everyone is able to deal damage. So if that ends faster, then everyone can get back to dealing damage faster. So in my opinion, get that monster down as fast as possible, regardless if the person mounting gets to perform a mounting finisher. Again, this is my personal opinion, and just make sure that the rest of your team is okay with that, because some people will get upset like, oh, you threw me off my mount too soon, I didn't get to finish. And it's like, I don't think that's a big deal, because for most of the mounting finishers that I've seen, the damage is usually not that impressive, and especially if you are in a hunting party, it is most definitely not anything compared with the amount of damage the 4 of you can deal when the monster actually goes down. But again, this is my opinion, and not everyone, and maybe not everyone agrees with it, but that's the way that I personally feel. But anyway, those are the mounting mechanics of Monster Hunter World, the way that I see them. Did I get anything wrong? Comment section, feel free to let me know. I really appreciate the amount of veterans that actually come to my comment section and give me feedback, because I really want you guys to understand, like, I don't take this harshly when people are giving me feedback about stuff that I've done wrong or maybe optimizing the combos. This is good. Teaching everyone how to get the best out of the experience, to me, is what matters. Like, I don't ever think about whether or not, I wonder if Rurikhan's feelings are going to get hurt if I post this. Don't worry about that shit. Just tell me if I'm wrong. Just tell me. It's fine. It's okay. And that way everybody gets informed, and maybe I'll even do follow-up videos on situations that I see require it. But yeah, I just want to say I really appreciate you guys. You guys doing a fantastic job in my comment section, and thank you guys all for your support. And yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, all that usual YouTube stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next one.